flashed past, curtains drawn aside, but that was then, naked pursuing opalescent cars across the endless New World wastes, in a night of crushed lilies to awaken me to the first flash. The great architects of space in the 5 realms is the answer, was the idea, opening gates. Next, while I sat in the glowing room, long and strange in its ordinariness of swarming light dakinis that came from his final eye, I noticed that the rest of the room was floating into a natural phase of its own, so I entered the room. Dreaming tales carried distant of the invader, king of the spinning hill, revolved without concern on his own sublime axis, his deity cloud mind geared to upsweeping rushes from the wind traps. Line by line, the awakening from the glyphs of meaning. The pagoda marries down with the earth, but strange overload from the spiraling discs, whizzing off in buckshot scatter brilliancies of dark heaven. If it mean final ascension through the last spheres of opening, bring it down now, let all the force of it down. Gaping ajar, flung out through the great marriage's broadcast, ricochets of starfire spewing into the realms. As my arm is raised, the others begin to feel the rays streaming, unlike myself, who am gone. The beat begins. It has been there all along. Subtle rhythmic flame, destroying souls on every hand, gleaming paler than pale in the meager light cast by the butter lamps. Awesome measure of the image rising, massive within, crowding out any possibility of remnant. Deep, longing toward. Foreign hills, the gleam elusive and expanding as it vanishes, gleam of recognition, of causes, becoming fiction of trees, sky, dream, deep longing toward foreign hills. Enters our brains dark and muttering, initiations by awesome spurts of rain. You draw a breath, and the snakes have vanished into the earth. The whirling sun steps massive over the fragile plain, blessing itself in love with anything registers. Light without axis, streaming worlds, Amoghasiddhi rays, supreme light world crashing out, from within to meet the stillness, from without separation, from within without pain uniting. You are not yourself. You never were. Bones of shamans clatter as I cut loose. Who was it singing as I left the room? There are 2 sources, unborn and everlasting, the bright, the light, and the above. All these were with him whom we have never seen, nor will ever see, according to the word. They saw a realm adjoining their boundaries, which was all of the light and the power and bliss. So they desired it and went in. Then, having gazed at the light, flocks of birds swooped up, and everything became this terrible, radiant, glistening world. Their wings were blazing like suns in the primal man. The 5 light gods, strung like Christmas tree lights along the verges of the last things that can be known. Songs supreme, total radiation of the burning God of the wheel, in whose hands nestles the great King who will deliver us. Had they faded out, the great luminous powers, at that moment of single breathtaking dip, and lunged into the inside-out switchover of darkness, and holy dawn is a hushed precinct in our memories. Alive, rushing energies and the orbs of light pulsations spreading over the webs of force which sustained us, their great love, singing carelessly some fabulous intricate hymn. The dark fire in turmoil remembers its former peace and blazes in dim fury removed without delicacy from the source. Their own blinding brew of recognition, it was dawn, and the streetlights, I had that cold rush which we associate with the feeling of our true identity, paling against the surrounding air. There was no further need. The search was over. The complete God book, the volumes of the light without fragmentation. The star is rising with great, great power through the vaults of carefree Holocaust space. I reach down into the incredible dim staircase and out into the everywhere electricity of space. Surrendered as you are in dreams, I walk past the courts, the temples belonging to the masters of the hill. My life rests solidly on this one casual assumption. Waiting on the side of the hill in starlit darkness, arms up and stiff in attitude of greeting towards the hilltop, eyes fixed and starting out, sweat shining on his face, standing enwrapped before the God. The stars begin to pale as the clear dawn begins. There is a shrill whistling higher up. I wait for it to sound again. Off in the distance, a listless sound of insects swarming. Here is spoken the total frame in the living fire. In halting speech, my window frame spirit, of fire with caustic longing, denies the incredible reality of the new window. The old phantom lingers, waiting for a fruit to fall from the new hand trembling. I want you to come away. I can know it yet not see the delicate leaves drop to the moving stream. My tree glitters, my mind is unhinged. The slow rite, the inevitable. You whose hand wrought this, I am speaking of a former time. Voices incoherent of the gods approach. Ring on the left hand, spinning. Signs appear. I am read by them. And clouds I never knew dissolve before the raging illumined power. Draped over the boulders, the text of life. Poetry screams beyond. As he walked forth from the shadowed stones, straining at some etheric leash, heart-storming strangeness, and this given me by beloved and lordly beings, with whom receiving the doctrine, light particle by light particle, without interference or distortion. The stick whistles through the air towards me. The bird descends with the mystery no one owns, its heart pulsing, tumbling with the ecstatic waves of sky, endlong, wide. The dawn escapes from its beak with brilliant dark karma sparks. A man looks at a wall. Gone is the staff of any journey, kicking allegory in the teeth, eyes watching me for a distant vibration of the new text, joining blast to dreadstorm blast. As the lights spring up in the forest, I remembered the rest of the story. The road went on. The fire had singed my sleeve while I lapsed into reverie. The ground where I lay spoke the signature divine. The two travelers awoke late in the day and sighed to see the sun gone far on its course, and their life resumed its meaning as the song stopped. Flame, rock, light, cloud, wind, color, earth, tree, meadow, jumping. I can hear the conversations of the trinity of sky, awful vast night, coming through trembling air, and ground, eternal ground, murmurs. Their complex, simple saying, rushing through simultaneous doors ajar. So many tongues, blissed out. The river crashes into morning eyes. Chrome lids sparkle with the dazzling rumor in which we moved, sweeping us down arcane primordial tracks. The river dashes its heads of silver against the rocks in jets of blinding prismatic spray. The brilliant bright blue, the whispering in deep, dark grasses, the glint of clouded queens in her eye. I believe in all myths. And now, as she moves serene and black, and now as she is drawn down by Hades' finger, in the reeds I heard word of her passing. Oh, this is the part with Asuna. In the reeds I heard word of her passing, light phosphorescent of her soul's glint, for a moment, so brief as leaves, as if she had made the stars. I heard it coming through the leaves. There is nothing that has to be done. It was only light showing in the gap. Rejoicing at the center, rejoicing at the edges. The text is lost as a burst of light appears behind us, and whistling through the blood, I dream of the great and forgotten Doctrine. The solar angel in her storms, throwing over the face of the cliff rapid messages, blossoming in the void. Standing up in the light now, and brilliant drift through the delicate blazing nets of sign, countersign, and belief. Entering the gates, stalks like a swarming intention over the face of the sun. I knew it was all a hitchhiker's godlike fantasy, twisting in the wind. Light breaks, the possibilities are endless. I am not permitted to say any more. At the heart-crushing speed of singing, express, heedless, headlong, I, dramated out, longed for the wind-eaten ridge. Another voice, high, drums sought for me, I'm home. I'm gone in the heavy dream. Raining down vision lands, I sought the seat of the Lords of Light. There was no harm. I left myself hanging on the edge. Barely discernible murmurs. Squeaks of phantoms push out towards our hearing. Oh, waves of healing sound. In, the interval lay over time. High winds over the deep. The large, dark, heaving, lightful space. In the middle of the endless day, the whiteness lifted. From the niches and passageways which were the secret places. Footsteps hurry past the windows, laughter in the air like the clapping of hands. And the dream throbs around us delicately as we move in. The sounds spilling over. I am just looking at the wall. Oh, here, 3 moons rising over the great bay where we sport with rainbows, giving ground endlessly to the barely perceptible spirits wafting in from the open seas. Delicate the voices heard, untold, calling to dangerous fulfillment, printed in white light on our brains. At that time, pale blue sheen of his mind leaning into the empty places, and the mysterious conjunctions emerge like heavy-laden trees smashing through the mists. On the hill of the self-created Lord, here on green earth below, dance the sweet lights, toes to the ground, pulling wisdom from the heart of the world in its living cavern far beneath. Around in a trembling space of life like visible shrines alive, huge eyes of it, clouds see it where it matters in the midst of breathing trees. We are speaking quickly, not to grasp. It is soon over, with the being becoming entirely clear, passion beyond. The wave falling deeply now, heard in the uncontrollable vision, tingling night, deeper and deeper still. And all this endless merriment snaps as the visions change and fade with the strangeness of the heart. Arises with wrenching voltage, lashing the once pure air, the seed of horror, as the proud, straight familiar burns out forever in an instant. We are not anymore, nor the Grail, nor the holy mountain, nor the void, nor the seed. And the mother finally shows her face of death, The phase of consciousness called Mahat, halfway between the above and the below, is in no place called existence, where the truly human find their being. And the entities cannot rise, and their beings call out, and the pralaya, the great interval, with its promise of infinity, washes in. At the top of the column, a light breaks over the expanse. It's too far to see why. The speck of being in the distant. No, leave it at that bottom. Haze surrounding it. It should stop. At a certain point, the entire field snaps into place, and things no longer reveal themselves. Feast of harmless wrath, fading to delicate vision of light falling as the columns topple. And we slip, shaman powerful, to an alternate stream where gigantic iron birds bear us to an unbearably blue heaven, one of many, where the jittering light particles sing as they vibrate us into the power lines of the spirit. Tree rising through the idea of free space, and the pilgrim hung, needing nothing but an emptiness, a concept, not unlike time or life escaping. Hole in the sky, great solar disk that sinks for the last time, and shout of itself in the upper chamber, and the memory of its dawning, and its unyielding noon, and the inevitable ships bearing, and its black inevitable ships bearing its last fragments away. Feeling those dark riddles in, the amazement of meaning saw paradise, and dark mixing with light. The invisible bull yearning in the street of pallid domes, its stream of pilgrimages, its workings gleaming, the fantastic flow of shape becoming staff of clear intoxication, mind of heaven and crazed birds in the spine, rising with precious songs of inarticulate wisdom. I know, the sweet rain is lifting veil after veil, revealing endless icons of passage, almost too much to contain. Who am I? What are these breezes which disintegrate my mind? The immensities of earth separate, and the perfect forms beyond description which yearn at the borders of recognition. We will dream beyond our lives and make love serene with death until knowledge fills us with the flutes of being and breath issuing from the mirror. I knew that cipher as the shadows slipped out from the sun and the flocks of birds broke into understanding. An iron rain falls across the continent of Pangaea as the forward memory of the fire consciousness reaches its tendrils of flame into the ether-licking primordial basalt. The ancient hesitant device, becoming glyph, emerges unknown and totally without recognition. The flow is being. It was always night, and darkness floating on darkness. The first forms squatted at the brink, awaiting their meaning and the dawn. The ray pierced the mist, and the pale disk broke free. Shreds of knowledge like shrapnel breaking through with the sound of doves, or the voices of men on the night streets, talking nothingness. Flames rest stark in the wide eye behind this remembered tunnel to the summer vision trinity, caught, hanging, wanting this over and over, the shadow of a fan. Maneuvers in the March fields. In the fleeing clouds, torn from the edge of talking about it. There the bare ridge of the mountains of dream. It was then, before, in the other dream, a room sculpted without tenderness within the hollow chamber. Channels of another's heart, not mine. A little space with a few very present things resisting. And the vivid, perfect terrain. No rhapsody. The roaring of the tiny star enters my brain door to mate with holy surgeons there, recovering endless knowledge. The brilliant vacuum spills forth the many glittering one. Total their gems, saints, heroes, wisdoms falling, night being dying in the dawn. I hear them piercing the clear air, my heart kneeling, such as this over the unknown night fields, singing the 5 wisdoms, now to the death. Bullets for kings, decrees blazing, and the halls of dust put to the torch. Soul of me seeing stalks in the valley at wind dawn, colored of clouds where the kings walk day long, and heart mizzled with their toys of sorrow. Air, music, power, branches, fire, king's song over the valley, and rest. Passing silent rows in the shadow, every sense falls across the room, not as I knew it. The inner ring begins to topple. I was dreaming that I spoke, and then I got behind speaking, and then lost it. The sound beginning, the bruised Brahman absolute is the shadow. It was nothing, without dropping through the fires of realization into the seership. Oh, Holy One, it is like a fine rain, this feeling. The void, the great dawn, the birth of the forces, the coming into being, the directions, the realms, the division of, the immediate war, the many struggle, continuing to be drawing apart, the 4 existing energies, each directing in itself or the turning force, outward going, the birth of the center. They were all calling out to each other, the birth of the act, closed system, the great plan, opening out. and change, and the coming to pieces by a great desire without origin. The kingdom, nearer now to the makers, and we set up the unassailable structures, the gate, and scintilla off the ghastly anvil, the departure of the archons, its heavens, its sky and earth, its oceans, their destinies. I looked into forms which the creatures can handle, later heresies and the great sleep. That's sort of an outline of a whole cosmology which is involved in the last section that I'm reading now. What was granted on that first time out over the shadows? They were filling every crooked palace of my eyes' hollows that looked and lunged on that first walk out. What was spoken first was how all of this, every least part, must be supernaturally clear, illumined on the eternal tables by shift. What was spoken on the first time about the fresh, the vivid, the whole, the focus, and the vortex, where worlds pierced ideas with an absolute embrace and allowed themselves to exist in beauty. What was spoken from moment to moment, revolving in the clear space, without confusion. And the doors opened, the entire map appeared, plan of the whole, worlds appearing, crashing into perfection, like unimaginably powerful and efficient weapons. Stars consume us with longing, boulders reach for us like lovers, and we enter singing, we have gone nowhere. What was seen with the 1,000 eyes of us at the brink of all suns, glory of the mists cleared from the entryways across the valley floor, and the keepers who wait at the gates of the plan. This whole section is a description of the mandala, with the gates and the inner circles. What was heard in the skeleton's brief aria of obedience, as its rainbowed bones paid homage, wingtip to wingtip the ones of the fell doom magnificent, crowd in to catch, with tender clasp, my wisdom which never was, to transport it with all due pomp to a distant spot where it may revolve forever on its own delicate pivot in a style to which it is accustomed, safe from me until time is no more. And every gate to the plan, and every threshold of every gate, and every approach from the far places, and every cloud that hovers above the plan, desiring wind, and the gleaming sky, and the shift has shown us, and we are walking with ourselves into the shaking air, needing nothing, and all being has become as breath over the transfigured spaces, into the house of the heart on that first time, into the plan, through the gate of the first time. Throughout the land I saw you, whom my heart had never hoped to see, and it was all fire. As the first drops of rain fell, and the scent sliding down the air of the 1,000,001 desires of the unnamed God penetrated us who are empty of all wisdom at last. The gate of entry was passed, and night fell over the dissonant ranges. Here, where it will all begin, as the ground trembles, the wraiths of what was ungod, anything before, bestows itself prostrate before us, prepared for annihilation. Engraved on the ground where we walk is this warning: everything is now destroyed. Do not seek to be anything other than this. You will be divested of every garment until none remain. What is born must become whole by annihilation, by the gates of the first time, by the glittering flight of arrows into all twilights of knowing, by the din of the waning light. What was spoken, what was heard, what was seen, beyond the shift. At the north house, the gate is fast, where the night-filled trees vanish, and varicolored rocks sway and plunge towards an end at the north house. Given vision, north-filled, great being videoed in from the edge, essence ravings, gigantic core of star cults revealed, frenzy taste, and insect-figured dance over supposed surfaces of the map, blood over granite, and forgetfulness. Stars in heaven, star heaven, starry heavens, song sphere, fire out beyond, far away, kindled eyes in dark outer precincts. Watch, watch, sudden God's heart fire in the star. Now at the south house leans the heart that way. Mysteries concealed again, of shadows passing across the boulder's face. I sit in my room at the tower at noon. There are centuries of alchemy which seep through this chamber forgotten, of the goat-like folk who cluster at the base of the tower. I enter and sweep of its access from below. This earth is all, this life enough. Here where you stand, it is the center. You are axis of the known. From you, there are 6 possible ways out. There is the zenith, which is the height of your knowing, and all levels between. The ladder, the stages, the celestial spine, the man called I Am. The one before another. There is the abyss. Deepest currents beyond the sight of all suns, all squinting and peering, a descent to here. At all beginnings, no further, floor. This is the standing man, and drafts of the Empyrean seep to his tower's roots with humming of light. When all levels are known, at the west house there is a coming and a going, there is a face in the sun, there is a sign in the pervading day. There is no more than this. Lights of night given over to the evidences of the scene, wrenching the heart from man. I'm gone again into the fire, into brown earth, reviving the dead from deep rock. But mantras escape my lips, issuing strain of the clear, wide stream into the seizures of sky. I remembered nervous, clouded elements of ruinous breakout. Into the seas, forth, unencumbered longing at last, sheet lightning seen abroad, and the dark trotting figures. Under the guise of magic, animal code and free alarms, cryptic, jamming, raucous, reason exiled far but bejungled through thought storms, in dream storm running before, the gales of heart's end break through loosed into knowing, glistening cargo, mist enwrapped, cathedral of ports under, sign of the dawn mysteries. Flames breaking out and subsiding, the western gate is closed. Moving with it, throbbing of all worlds, and the ideas that swarm, and dakinis in their brilliance gathering, and oceans glistening. In the house of the east, the eyes open into vast gardens of ether and lightning and lunatic pealing. The being opens. Beyond high belief, under sharp strain of shadow, abandon the quest of other realms out beyond the fence of fire, beyond at the farthest reaches and the iron wall, and the stars within and the flowering fields within. On the void floats the form, spinning with a penetrating sound, reaching, gyrating, radiant, blossoming into form, it stops. I am, these are. I am, crash of the dawn, face to face.